I was indoctrinated into the pro-life, anti-choice movement as a child. Here's how it happened. The thing is, I was adopted as an infant. And one thing you need to know about people who are adopted as infants is that there's like a 99.9999% chance that we're gonna grow up believing that adoption saved our lives and we would have otherwise been aborted. Here's an example of the propaganda most of us grew up with.
Before I took my first breath, before I even had a name, love was already making a way. I may not have grown inside them, but I have grown in their hearts and their prayers and their hopes and the quiet moments before they dreamed of me, before they knew me. The truth is, all I know about my biological mother is that she loved me so much that she chose life.
She chose life. There it is.
And because of that choice, my mom and dad get to choose me. Because of that choice, I will have a home filled with love and a family to call my own. And best of all, I get to have you as my grandma and grandpa.
I grew up believing that this was basically my story, and then decades later I realized it was all propaganda. My mom, as is the case with most people who are in these shoes, was not choosing between abortion and adoption, she was choosing between parenting and adoption. This video claims the child will have a loving home because of adoption, implying that if the child was not adopted, the child would not have a loving home. This is why we see so many adopted people, including myself, growing up believing that we're charity cases, when in reality, we weren't adopted because our parents didn't love us enough or because our parents loved us so much they chose adoption, but because our parents felt like there was no other choice. They didn't have the support or the resources they needed for parenting to feel like a real option to them. I was so gaslit by this propaganda growing up that when my mom told me she never considered abortion, I thought she had to have been lying to me because in my brain, the only reason someone relinquished a child for adoption was because it was either that or abortion. The user who posted this video says that adoption meets a real need because in 2025, over 600,000 abortions are expected in the US alone. But what she doesn't understand is that her own people, the anti-choice movement, have rigorously studied quote-unquote birth mothers for decades, and in the early 2000s found out themselves that women are virtually never choosing between abortion and adoption. Researchers say they were struck by the quote base level resistance to abortion, which suggested an untapped potential for success in motivating women to consider adoption. They did their research, they talked to their quote-unquote birth mothers, and here were their recommendations at the end of everything. Adoption advocacy should not be positioned against abortion. In the psychology that drives decisions about adoption, adoption really does not compete with abortion. It is competing with the emotionally compelling alternative of parenting the child. While women make the initial decision of life or death quickly, decisions of whether to parent the baby may take months. Therefore, a long window of opportunity is available to reach these women with messages that will motivate them to choose adoption. In other words, I grew up as the poster child for a movement I had nothing to do with.